SFJ 4x4 Studios presents
in my oversized four-wheel drive Jeep.
a Jeep podcast starring industry experts.
Pure monosity.
What? Say that again.
With mad scientist Scott Brown,
Use my drill press as a sort of lathe.
our host Neil Simpson,
If one light goes out, they all go out.
filled with shenanigans.
We are really professional with Jeeps.
This is I Speak Jeep.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, however you are joining us. This is the I Speak Jeep podcast presented by SFJ4x4.com. And this is a particularly special episode. And
yeah, Scott looks a little different today.
Scott does look a little bit different. So if you're one of the three valued listeners, who have us in your ear holes on your commute or on your while you're working on the factory line, we appreciate you for moving this program forward. But definitely you're gonna want to hang in there for this one because, like I said, Scott's got a little bit of something going on, and we'll tell you about that here in a hot second. My name is Neil of Simpson Family Jeeps, joined in Grandma's Couch Studio by
Jeff Shermani.
the Italian Stallion, the producer, and
Davey.
Davey.
Just Davey.
the Savage.
Just Dave. I did this a week
Davey.
ago, I think. Where I was just like, Jeff. I'm just Jeff.
Davey. You know what you hear, folks, is the Savage, our videographer, editor of pictures, social media management, in studio with us. Scott is out.
One of his least favorite names that I always say, the camera guy.
The camera guy doesn't particularly love that.
It's whatever.
It's whatever. Davey's in studio with us, and Scott is home with the flu. So the mad scientist, we wish him a speedy recovery. I absolutely had it. I'm probably the one who brought it into the shop last week.
Thank you for that.
I went home sick.
I mean, I may be a carrier of it because my whole family's got it, except for me at this point. I don't know.
It's just you're a carrier. You don't actually get symptomatic. You just spread it. That's good. You're a
Yeah.
super spreader.
Maybe. Who knows? I've been at a lot of things lately.
That's how I felt, and that's probably where I caught it from was a number of people-y events last weekend. So Davey is sitting in for us today because today's episode is going to be a little bit of a behind the scenes on the media aspect of SFJ 4x4. And so ultimately, if you are engaged, listening, and part of this program, you will know that that we are an automotive business at first and foremost, and we have been operating with a heightened level of transparency for years. That was our expectation, and obviously the goal as we move forward is actually to increase exposure on all those social media platforms. And so how do we transition into a media business that that actually supports our physical application of vehicle building on the side and part sales? So flip the tables a little bit and what that process has looked like as we continue to move forward.
Yeah.
So are we live? I'm surprised if we're live, and don't forget, folks, you too can join us live 10:19 on Mondays. So you got to jump on and let us know. Say good morning. We do have a special announcement for one of our valued listeners and viewers. Happy birthday to Roy Hill. It was a big weekend. I can't believe how many people have birthdays in March that I know.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, without getting entirely too graphic, I just wonder what was going on 9 months ago.
There's Chuck. Good morning, Chuck.
Hey, good morning, Chuck. So we are live. That's good. People are hearing us. I know we've had a couple technical difficulties the last couple weeks. So it's good to know that people are able to find us on the Book of Faces.
I think it's great that the two tech people of this show are on air and we're not having any technical difficulties.
Well, unplug it and plug it back in. Turn it off, turn it back on. Is the go-to. So we will be, like I said, we'll be talking about some of that behind the scenes on the media aspect of the business. You, of course, Jeffrey, have a big 3 weeks ahead of you, 4 weeks ahead of you.
Yes.
What's coming down the pipe for you?
So April 19th is the big music competition in Erie, Pennsylvania that we're running through the nonprofit Heberle's Heartstrings.
Mm-hmm.
The competition has 30 artists that are going to be competing, all original music, all independent artists, original works.
Has that lineup already been picked? Is it public anywhere?
It's not public yet.
Okay.
We are waiting on final confirmations on a few of those 30 for what their song title choices are going to be.
Okay.
And the genre that they're playing. So far, the genre varies from country music, folk music, up to alternative rock. There's a hard rock ballad band, they call it a light band because it's part of their band, not the full band.
Okay.
That's performing. So really cool opportunity to have a variety of music, a little bit for everybody.
Sure.
And
No covers.
no
All
covers.
independent composition.
Yeah. So it's a great
It's like
opportunity.
Pitch Perfect 2 or 3. I don't remember which one it is. Pitch Perfect 2. Do you know Pitch Perfect 2?
I know all three Pitch Perfects, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
they're good movies. I
They're
can't.
great movies.
They're
Great movies.
but that's a cappella stuff. We're not doing a
I
cappella.
know, but it's original composition, right? And so the
Well,
whole joke is the
Yeah,
they
because
have to do original.
yeah, because that girl comes in and starts trying to do cover,
Exactly. Right.
and then they end up using cover. And
They use her
Yeah.
song. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
it's relative. It's
so
relative.
a cappella, it was all had to be cover.
Correct. It had to be covered.
And it
now-
couldn't be original.
And now it has to be original.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're saying with yours is you have to
Yep.
to do originals at this point. So very cool. And you did a little bit of I assume you took the Jeep to Peak and Peak?
I did take the Jeep to Peak and Peak.
Okay, a little bit of road trip. I actually like to tell people, and I didn't share this with you earlier, when my family were enthusiasts, just on the enthusiast side of things, that was actually one of our destinations. We would all get in our Jeeps and as a family convoy to Peak and Peak.
Yeah.
And play putt-putt. We would just go up, convoy up there in the summer. And
I
play
was
putt-putt.
kind of hoping to be able to play putt-putt with the kids, but because they're in that mid-season changeover, there was nothing.
The weather Saturday probably would have been okay.
Yeah. Even Sunday morning wasn't terrible there.
Okay.
But I don't know. It was a fun experience. We went up mostly because the band Hide and Seek was playing at
Okay.
the Bistro 210 at Peak and Peak for their worst winter ever party.
Which is great marketing.
Great marketing. But the lead singer and front woman of the band is actually the vice president of Heberle's Heartstrings. So we went up specifically so could watch her band. The kids were still getting over their cold, so they mostly just hung out in the room. But
Yep.
for the kids, it was a wonderful time away from the house. They had a blast. All things were good. Of course, we parked in the parking lot next to two other Jeeps.
Oh, you have to.
There was a blue JK and a white JTR.
All right.
And so my wife goes, "What, do you have to leave them next to each other so they can snuggle all night?" I said, "Yeah."
Oh, of course. Of course. That was great commentary by Kristen. Yeah. That's awesome.
So
That's good.
But it was a good time overall, and a great band. If you like basically anything that would be considered rock from 80s to current,
They've got it covered.
They were doing a little bit of everything. They
Nice.
They did a cover by Pink. They did a lot of Metallica.
Okay.
It was just kind of all
Cool.
over. Good cover band. Great job.
Cool. Savage, we had a video running this weekend. Did pretty good on the YouTubes. It was obviously one of the inspirations.
Speaking of the Jeep truck driving to Peak and Peak and the JTR I
Correct.
parked next
Yeah,
to.
that's exactly right. So you had the Jeep truck doing probably what it does best, just being a pavement princess. If you've watched the video,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
folks. No, I actually.
I don't know.
What's that? Go ahead. What, Jeffrey?
No, it's been like that lately. Got to make some changes. I got to do something different.
You gotta do something different, huh? No, we yeah, your 1 ton pick 'em up truck. We got all that great footage in the video of your truck doing work,
Yeah.
and right now it just looks really great running down the highway.
Yep.
So as far as that's concerned, we had this video running this weekend. It was part of the inspiration to fill in for Scott while he's sick today. We are going to be unpacking a little bit about what goes into making some of these videos. Anything else that was, worthwhile mentioning?
Before he comments, we have to talk about Chuck in a comment saying, "Holy smokes, it's Dave."
It's Dave. Dave's not here, man. Dave is here.
I'm here.
Okay, now tell us.
All right, tell us. How was the weekend? Was anything
It was fine. Not too exciting.
okay?
I like to film in my free time too. So I
What-
worked with my buddy Grant. He runs a basketball training program.
Mm-hmm.
We did a 3v3 league this weekend, so went and filmed that.
And what some people may or may not know, I'm actually super passionate about basketball and football. Those are like my two things. And I would love to see like a 3v3 league in the summer happen. And I love the idea. That you're doing multiple platforms of like content, Where was the league game at, or where was the league?
It was at the Perry High School.
Okay. I'm sorry. Well, and since folks, we have a little bit of a quirky nature going on today, is the idea that we are down staff. So now I have to monitor my phone, make sure that somebody's not trying to reach out to us here at the facility, because we don't usually. Savage helps run the front end for us on these days. So we're doing the best we can with what we got. So it's up at the Perry.
Well,
I used to play
he
at that game. I
He
used to play in that
also likes to monitor our sound and quality while he's sitting over at his computer when we're filming.
Sure.
I can't have him do that today, so I literally have Kristen listening, and she goes, "He's quiet."
Nice.
I don't know what you expected.
I mean, I turned the mic up some more for you, so I got to keep it so that we don't turn it too high and
we
pick
would
up
be clipping
everything.
on everybody. Absolutely. Yeah, and the beauty of the Savage is the calm demeanor on the outside, but with the ability to just absolutely roast you at a moment's notice. I think it's the
No, his troll ability to troll.
that's absolutely the
unbelievable.
ability to troll. Some of the stuff that he'll say, he'll say it straight to your face without emotion, and I'll be like, I don't know.
He
if
almost
he's-
got me with an AI image. Like, the only reason I didn't completely fall for it was because Scott's hands were appropriate in it.
Oh, what was?
So he came over and he's got Scott eating pie for Pie Day.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, "How did you get Scott to eat a pie?" And he's like, "Oh, it was AI." And I'm like, "What? No way." And I'm like, I start looking at the hand a little bit closer. I'm like, all his fingers are right. AI can't do hands. I know something's. Davey's messing with me. He's like,
AI
"Yeah, I
can't
just
do hands yet.
I started falling for it." And then he's like, "Yeah, I just took his face and I inputted." I'm like, "No, you didn't, Davey."
You're the worst. You're the worst, Savage.
Whoops.
Oh my goodness. Well, and I think it's fun is that Chuck is on commenting because Davey has obviously ridden with Chuck, and we're going to talk a little bit about how we have, blended the physical application of the automotive and Jeep community with sound media outreach, and that's kind of how I like to think about it in the back of my brain. And so whether that is on your social mediums, or obviously on podcasting and then obviously YouTube videos, and the idea is much like anything that SFJ 4x4 has done in the past is to kind of create a steadfast flagship that just keeps moving forward. So whether it's a train on the tracks or a freight ship that's leaving the port, whatever your analogy is that you want to conceptualize, the
You
goal.
went with train first because there's currently a train outside.
Well, and ultimately that's always my go-to is I make these train analogies because Conneaut, Ohio is a good train town, but the idea that we want to equally or appropriately support primary mediums. So when it comes to media specifically, Instagram, Facebook, podcasting, YouTube video, and YouTube as a whole, and we kind of appropriately distribute our content along those lines, not really looking for breakaway virility on any one of them, but just to create consistent and replicable quality content that people want to engage in. And then you just kind of keep creating a little more and a little more, and you keep adding to your toolbox of, both physical tools that we have at our disposal for, for whether it be podcasting or whether it be YouTube, and then obviously our content tools as far as how we learn the little tips and tricks. And so for me, I have always been very, very interested in being able to showcase what it is that we do. Because, of course, early on, I always used to tell people business-wise that what we did not make us special. And, of course, what that was parting Jeeps. So back in the day, if we get back to Scott and myself, and then I had a cousin that worked for me, parting down the Jeeps wasn't really that special. I used to say you had every Jim Bob Yahoo in his driveway from coast to coast who could tear apart a Jeep and sell it on eBay. It was how we did it that made us special. And then when we were doing it, that made it special. And so whether that was, clear pricing and cleaning up the products and taking quality pictures, doing all those types of things, putting a nice display together when we started going to shows and vending at the swap meets, that was the how.
Yeah.
Right. And the idea was then to take that and capture that via media, to showcase it, to share it with even more people. So even if you weren't going to be at a Jeep show and you weren't actually going to be at that show, and then even if you were not even going to buy a part from us, I took that model and I took it one step further, and I got stickers and I got shirts and I got stuff like that. So maybe you were at the show and maybe you weren't going to buy a part, but maybe you wanted to buy a shirt or a sticker or something like that. But then I had to give you a reason why to rep the brand and why to become involved, when then that was, hey, we have to show people the how, the why, right? We have to kind of give them a behind the scenes look of what we're doing, or that look of what we're doing. And so that's how we ended up pushing further and further into the media atmosphere. And of course, I grew up, kind of obsessively reading through the classic magazines and then the old VCRs of like Stunt Chasers and, off-roaders from, the old days. And then, of course, we had, the dawn of the Chip Foose and Overhauling and West Coast Customs and all those early on shows. And so I kind of wanted to replicate a little bit of that.
Why don't you tell us the reality of the situation?
Did I say it?
No, you didn't.
Oh, I didn't say it yet. I didn't say it yet.
No, I think you're being conscious not to say it now.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I can't believe I said it so many times in that last video. And if you don't know what that's about, folks.
I want to see if anyone can produce the count of the number of times that it was said in the Jeep Trucks Suck video.
I don't remember saying it that many times, but I really struggled with that video because I really like gladiators. And for the life of me, I could not get past saying that Jeep trucks suck. I couldn't get past it. I couldn't, not have that overshadowing everything that I did, and I just wanted to kind of like anything else, I wanted to just kind of create good, hey guys, we should all love this truck, which of course is unrealistic. I recognize that, but that was like that idea of like that freight train leaving the station is like, hey, hey, just jump on, this is good, positive, wow, yay, And I told my wife over the weekend, I said, hey, this one's off the chains, it's a good video. We're not getting a ton of negative comments because of course on the internet, no matter what, you get negativity, right? Because let's be honest, the internet has just given every idiot a voice. So, so you get that. But my wife was like, "Oh, that's great, honey. What's the name?" And I was like, "Jeep Trucks Suck." And she was like, "Another negative title." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know.
Works.
It works, and that's the challenge."
Well, I told you probably 10 times that that's the title of it, but the video is actually about why they don't suck.
I know. I'm sorry that I'm a head case. I can't make that fact that I was a basket case about it. And honestly, the thing that the Savage brings to the table when it comes to the YouTubes and dealing with me is he's very steadfast in his approach, which obviously works really well because I'm all over the place like a squirrel. But his consistency in the process is what benefits us.
Well, and his ability to script out what he wants is getting better and better consistently.
Right. To be able to tell the story, to do the storyline. And he just needs us to not he needs us to actually participate.
Yeah.
For us not to be recluse. And of course, I'd love if Scott was involved, if he was here, because he was absolutely awful at videos and podcasting in the very beginning.
He's gotten way better.
I mean, and people will remark that. They'll be like, he's got such a big personality online and blah, 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 you know?
Well, you'll appreciate this because last Tuesday, one of our listeners who brought in a YJ, but he's actually talking about restoring a YJ and a CJ.
Mm-hmm.
And he walked in and, immediately recognized me from the videos, from the podcast, whatever. We were talking for a minute. And I said, well, you really need Scott. This is his area of expertise. Let me grab Scott. I yelled back for Scott. He comes walking around the corner. And as he walks around the corner, the customer goes, "It's the mad scientist."
That's funny.
You could just tell Scott was uncomfortable, but like, yep, that's
He's gotten more used to it.
Let's talk about the Jeep, please.
Yeah, he's so uncomfortable when people want to like affirm him. You know what I mean? Like on a personal level. And Scott just thinks in nuts and bolts, and he's gotten so much more in tune with the existential aspect of social media and socializing. We used to joke that years ago, that as the business continued to grow, that Scott would just be like back in the corner, kind of caged off from humanity, and he would, just kind of go, out of the light of day, work on his transmissions and transfer cases, and then he would go back home. He would just, as long as he didn't have to interact with people. And now, and that was really me and Greg, our lead performance mechanic, joking about that. Now it's really Greg wants to just do brief interactions with people, and then he just wants to be under a Jeep, just absolutely big hammering away.
Oh yeah.
And Scott has developed more of an inclination towards working with the public, though. Savage on the YouTubes has actually started to get Greg to release up a little bit and get a little more comfortable. It's that persistence, it's that steadfast nature of Davey that he's just like makes it really comfortable to be like, I don't actually want to do this, but and Davey's just like just stands there like. which is a true story. I actually sent David to collect on a check from a subcontractor at one point in time owed us money. I actually sent Davey to go collect on it because I just said, Davey, just hang out there until they cut you a check, because they're either going to do it or they're going to escort you off the property or something like that.
Right.
It's just like, and Davey's like, I can do that.
It's a lot harder to say no to somebody in person, and
it is.
Davey's not a small person. You're not going to say no to him easily.
He's an intimidating factor of just his physicality, but then he also has a resolution. He just kind of just chills.
He just stands there.
You can't tell whether he's happy or he's mad. You're like, I don't want to do this, and he just kind of like looks at you. He's like, I'm like, but I don't want to do it, Davey. I don't want to keep shooting. He's like, well, that's fine.
And then you're like, oh, all right, fine, I'll do it.
Fine, Davey. I mean, all I said to him, he's like, all I said to him was like, I don't want to do it. And he's like, well, I mean, it's about why they don't suck. And I was like, yeah, but I don't even want to do it right now. Blah blah blah. And he just kind of stands there, And I'm just like, fine, I'll do it. I head back to it, but so I think that. The concept here, and then Jeffrey, and of course it's important for people to know. So Jeff actually had more credentialed work for sound production.
Yeah.
Coming into the business, Davey came in just with an inclination. Now you were that way once, right? We all are, I suppose. That's an interesting way to look at it. But you really didn't have a background in sound until you pursued your degree work, right?
Well, I mean, since high school, really, I've been doing sound.
That's true, because you were doing all the audio production for theater.
I mostly did the lighting in the high school productions. I did it for 12 years, but I worked very closely with the guy that did the soundboard, so
It was
I
like
learned off
set
of him
and stage production. You were
yeah,
doing. Okay.
and if he wasn't around, I would run the soundboard, and so I did have some experience with it, and then going out to music venues and helping here and there with setup. But it wasn't until probably 2017 where I really started getting full hog into it.
Sure.
I had done some recordings for artists early on when we were recording with cassette tapes and things like that. But
What?
yeah,
Cassette tapes.
I swear to you, I
What's a
literally
cassette?
Yeah, right, Savage. What's a cassette? That's right. What year? What are you talking about doing some recordings with cassette tapes? What, 1994? What were? I mean, were we third and fourth grade? I mean,
So-
was it?
so early recordings at home, you couldn't do it direct to CD at home. Computer technology was still getting there. You didn't have the ability to just patch in very easily. For at home, you were buying the cassette recorders and plugging into that. You could hook up multiple mics and stuff into this little recorder that had a cassette tape eject spot that you put the cassette in, and you can use that. You could patch it into a computer and upload it for a CD, but yeah, it was recording on cassette.
I don't know about that, Jeffrey. That I feel like that's 1994. When was this?
It was probably 2000, early 2000s that we were doing that.
Wow. Go
Yeah.
figure. It's how, as technology increases, it moves so fast we forget kind of maybe those humble beginnings, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, it's
That's
crazy
funny.
to think about the fact that cassette tapes really went away in the 2000s, in my opinion, but they were still
They're
there.
still being used as a tool.
They
is
were
what you're
still
saying.
used. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Now they're like obsolete completely, but
Yeah.
CDs are pretty much obsolete
CDs
at this
are
point.
pretty much obsolete.
Yeah.
Do you know what a CD is, Savage?
I know what a CD is.
Oh, okay.
But-
Okay.
I think I've seen a picture of a cassette once.
Do you know what
Yeah.
a laser disc is?
Ooh, laser discs.
No.
Oh, they
Nah.
were hot for a second.
They're just a brief. Just
mean,
super brief.
It was look at the newest thing.
I feel
latest
bad
and
for
greatest, and then it
whoever.
was gone.
I feel bad for whoever invested in a laser disc, like a laser disc player, or bought their whole collection in laser disc. Somebody's out there who did that.
My favorite is the other day we were talking about movies, and Davey's like, I think I had all those on VCR. I'm like, well, you mean VHS? You watched them on VCR, but VHS tapes.
Same difference. I don't think I would know the difference either, Davey. I don't- So the interesting thing that I wanted to kind of get you guys to input is what has been your experience, and or a little bit of intentionality or motivation as far as how you've continued to grow your skill set and how you approach your position within arguably an automotive based business as we continue to make that shift to prioritize our media exposure, right? So the idea of bringing your skill set in and developing your skill set and developing your toolbox of personal professional tools that then allows us to share us as characters, as individuals, as business folks out to the masses, right? So what is your motivation? What are your things that you feel like you're bringing to the table and how you're doing it? Jeffrey, you want to, what are your thoughts on that?
So I just do it for the passion. I mean, I love working with audio and being behind the scenes, not being on the camera like you guys keep making me do, Davey.
I think you do great on camera, personally.
I don't know why. I really enjoy having that knowledge, and even when I go to even like open mic nights and stuff like that, and there's a younger sound guy that's just getting into it and being able to help coach them and see them develop, and then hearing how everybody, especially in the audio industry, everybody's got their unique flair on how it sounds. So when you're listening to 3 different people run the same board. Each person's tweaking different things on that board in between sets.
Hmm.
And it just, they like their own set of, whether it be compression or the EQ settings are going to be slightly different for their own unique flair. And when you listen to production studios, you can actually hear that. Like if you have several different artists on one production studio, and then you listen to artists from a different production studio, you can actually hear the difference in sound qualities between the studios.
Huh.
But it's not that it's one quality is bad versus the other is bad.
Sure.
They're both really good, but one sounds a little different.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately, that's what I think makes, when we talk about mainstreaming experiences, and listening to the radio or listening to music in general, there's got to be a certain set factors that most people enjoy or appreciate, but then within there, how do you stand out?
Yeah.
That's
exactly it.
And I think that's, one of the things
It's not
you've
what
done.
you do, how you do it.
Exactly. Right. And one of the things you've done here is help construct the sound quality. So we have the physical mixers and computers and the ability to live stream, and then obviously the ability to digitalize and upload for folks.
Both
podcasts. We have 2 podcasts here.
I mean, even down to the choice of microphones used.
Sure.
It all makes a difference when you're constructing a studio, especially in a noisy environment like this one.
Oh, yeah. This is incredibly challenging.
Yeah, and to do it without any real acoustic padding in this area at all. We're talking metal walls around us.
Right. It's always funny when people are like, that's where you do that, you know? And like, it is definitely one of the things that I've always felt strongly about is you just kind of have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. If we are all, there's a meme out there where it's ladder rungs, and one is like attainable kind of mid height level rungs. And so the idea is that, maybe that first step is not the step that's ideal or where you want to be, but it is attainable.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas somebody who's the first rung is out of reach because of financials or time or whatever, you'll never get off the ground.
The way I look at it is you've got a 20-foot platform over there, and you want to get to it. How are you getting to it? Well, build yourself some stairs.
Yep.
Walk up the stairs, one step at a time.
Right. You can't just look at that 20-foot platform and be like, well, it must be nice up there. You know? I know, you just start making a stair, one step at a time, like you were saying there. And if, people are not familiar, this is arguably our second iteration of the podcast. The first one, and we've mentioned, it's no secret, you can find it online, was not met with the same level of consistency and production quality.
So Roy just jumped in, and I don't think he was in this morning when you started. So
well, absolutely. We said good morning to you, Roy, and we're talking about those March birthdays, to be honest with you. But glad that you jumped in here and are participating. And Rob Morgan's on, saying good morning,
and good to see Savage.
The Savage.
Morning.
So Savage, I mean, for you, how do you approach your job? How do you approach, kind of capturing the physical work that we do and then sharing it with our base?
Well, it's not easy.
There you have it. That's the Savage, guys. Moving on. Come on, Davey. Give us something more than that.
Well, it's not easy. Have you seen Scott?
Well, every time
You won't shut up, Neil. Greg, every time Greg talks, he cusses at me.
Davey has to edit out at least half of the times that Neil says, in actuality, the reality of the situation.
The reality of the situation. Listen, I don't know if you actually unpacked that for the listeners, and I don't remember.
No,
but
we haven't unpacked it for the listeners.
Jeffrey claims, and he dropped this on me right before the podcast, that he could create a drinking game out of our most recent YouTube video. And then that for every time that I say, in reality, or
in reality, what was the exact wording?
in the reality of the situation, and then we also kept saying there's a myriad of something.
Yeah. So I heard that a few times, but the reality of the situation just stood out
The reality of the
over
situation.
and over and over again.
So Davey goes, Well, I cut about 5 of those out. So, so apparently, you're going to have to go in and you have to count them up. Somebody will have to let us know. All right. So what were you going to say?
So-
It's not easy.
Every time we need to film something, I have to like really push for it. Like,
He's not lying. He's literally dragged us out of what we're doing. We're like, I need to film.
yeah.
Okay. Is that it? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay.
So
All right, I'll
informative.
try again.
There's so much behind the scenes with Davey right now.
First, I have to try to come up with an idea,
Okay.
and
How do you come up with an idea?
do
Do you have a process, or they just come to you, or?
Yeah, they just come to me. I mean, have to do some research and try to figure out what's trending.
I'm gonna not look at you. Every time I look at him, I'm
He
trying
just
to like,
stops
I'm trying-
talking.
Yeah, he stops
I look
talking.
at you for help.
I know, but see, the thing is, like, you're good at sharing these things. So the reality of the situation
Oh, there it is.
is that so is that both of you joined within the last couple of years, right? So if we're to kind of just go through, and I talked about
Would have been what, April or May of
21.
21.
So well, it's, I guess the date wise looks like 3 years. It's actually, we're pretty infantile in our process, and we've had great success so far. And I used to say this in the years of the business starting out, that if you were to apply, those years to a child, if your expectation out of a child at year 2 or year 3 or 4 is blah, then why is your expectation out of a organic process any different, right? As a society, sometimes we get those waters get muddied because when we have like an NFL
just to clarify,
sports
we're
league-
on I Speak Jeep, not the American Hustle, right? 'Cause a lot of these talking points feel like the
a
American
lot
Hustle.
of the talking points feel.
If you don't know,
American
go
Hustle.
check out that show.
Yeah, it's a good podcast that we produce, that
Yeah.
Jeffrey produces, and we produce here at SFJ4 before.
Literally
So-
part of this conversation is that production.
Yep. And so the idea that when we look at it like, say, an NFL team, right, and a lot of people can, kind of see that out. An NFL team has millions of dollars of disposable income that they can attempt to hire the best individuals, whatever that looks like, whether it be administration or coaching staff or
Unless you're the
players.
Steelers. Well,
Oh, Jeffrey, you're so fired up over this quarterback situation.
oh,
So
it's,
anyways, you have all this
it's a
money.
mess.
And so the idea is that if we have the ability to do research and development, if we have these infrastructure already put in place as a business that is the business of football, if you will, or the business of athletics, that club has been together for decades, and you have this big amount of money, and you think you're hiring the best people, that you should be able to get in, you should be able to hire a person, and they should be able to effectively create change within a season or two. I'll be honest with you, I find that to be almost unrealistic sometimes, because humans at our nature are so slow to change anything. So if you have a coach that you've hired and now you have players, you have to get everybody acclimated, you have to get everybody invested and involved. And yes, you're going to hit some big wins, but you're also going to have some massive setbacks.
Well, and
right?
I think early on in business, one of the things that I was told is once you've run the store for a year as a manager of that store, you now own the issues of that store. And at the time, I felt very much like you just said, like, well, how could I affect that kind of change in just a year? Like,
Mhm.
that's ridiculous. Looking back, I understand that advice slightly different now.
Okay.
I'm going, no, at a year, you do own those responsibilities. You do own those issues. That is you have to have that ownership.
Sure.
But that's not saying that it's supposed to be perfect at that time.
Right.
But you now have had a year with those issues to figure out how you can overcome them and start laying down plans and direction to move forward.
And that is the needlehead right there, is the idea that after those notches are in your belt, how do you start doing more? How do you learn from that? Are you getting better, or are you stagnant in the process?
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where we have this, when as generic consumers, we look in at other businesses and where they're at in their growth structure. And and so they go, okay, have you continued to grow or have you plateaued? Where we are with media, we continue to grow. Our exposure, the quality of content, the nature in which we reach out to people. The challenge is still the fact that we are a brick and mortar that sells automotive parts and builds automotive vehicles. And we really didn't have the operating capital that the NFL team does to then go in and hire the production team that has all of these skills and equipment and all this kind of stuff. And so
And
we
we
have
didn't
to-
attract the big TV deals for Hard Knocks to come in and film the team and show how it started.
Yeah, we did not have that.
Yeah.
And so we have to all kind of learn together in the process and continue to grow those tools that I was talking about with you guys. The fact that from the actual mixing boards to the cameras and the GoPros and the the drones and all that kind of stuff, and how do we continue to reinvest so that we, after we own those problems of where we started, how do we keep building? How do we keep growing in what it is that uniquely makes us us?
Well, and I think the most unique part about us is that, like you said, we didn't have that capital to invest. As a team, we're very fortunate that Davey has his own videography equipment. I
Correct.
have my own audio equipment.
Correct.
We're literally using our own personal equipment in the studio. It's not like we actually purchased a
Correct.
studio.
Correct. Oh yeah, there's no in the grand scheme of how business transactions work, everybody's got investment in this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you brought us the couches that we're currently sitting on.
there we go. Couches.
Yeah.
That's what I bring to the table. The reality of the situation.
He brings us the ability to rest.
The reality of the situation is we've got some really swell couches, and I needed somewhere for them to go. No, and so what people may or may not be aware of, I actually attempted back in like literally the early 2010 to 12 to do video of myself working on Jeeps. And at that time, there was so we were recording on VHS type. They were high 8s, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
They were smaller.
Yeah.
And so this is your
Yeah,
cassette
the
conversation.
old camcorders.
It was more of a camcorder style,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Does Davey know what a camcorder is?
And oh my God,
Yes,
you're
I
the
do, Jeff.
worst.
Okay.
You're the worst, Jeff.
I know I'm the worst, but I'm going to ask it anyways. I don't care. Listen.
So,
no, I
as
don't.
you were talking about, I'm cutting you off. As you were talking about, the professional recording equipment having cassettes still, here I am, is 2012, and the local community had a lens share program with cameras. So they had we're fortunate enough that our local cable access, whatever, we actually have like a local TV station, and they had cameras that they would lend out to the community for the community to try and record what was going on locally.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of like your lens share program, the lending library with your
instruments. Yeah.
instruments. It was a lens share program or a lending library for AV. Right?
That's really cool.
So the
You went
so I come in and I get this camera, and it's the very, very, very first time we move into this building. It's somewhere in 12, 13, and I am videoing, and what people do or don't know, my kid was born. I was helping raise my 1-year-old, and so I would stay home during the day, and then I would come to work through the night. So here I am. It's cold, it's dark, and I'm trying to shoot video of myself in the corner opposite where we're at, basically, in this building. And if we could find that footage, it would be worth its weight in gold.
That would be pretty cool to find.
Because it is so awful.
Because it's as primitive as can be, back to Robinson Crusoe.
Not only is it Robinson Crusoe, but I am just absolutely a basket case. I cannot talk in front of the camera to save my life. I have to walk forward and hit record, and then I walk back. You watch this. You know what I mean? We didn't have. I kid you not. Oh, I just wrecked the camera or I wrecked the mic. I kid you not.
This is why he doesn't do the production side of it. He doesn't know the difference between a mic and a camera.
We didn't have smartphones. You got to.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have smartphones when I started doing this, so I'm not doing like first person, anything.
Listen, we're going
I'm
to
on a
talk about the
tripod.
smartphones conversation for a second. You didn't believe me with cassette tapes in the early 2000s, and you're talking about 2012 without a smartphone.
All right. So I would love to find the footage. I know that doesn't exist. It's gone. It's lost to history, which is perfectly fine. But it is such a far cry from where we're at now and what the Savage is bringing to the table. So what kind of equipment are you using, and how are you attempting to capture kind of the unique behind the scenes, but then translate that? It's behind the scenes for us building Jeeps, but it's actually the storyline for our folks who are listening and watching at home. Does that make sense? So how are you attempting to capture that?
First, can we talk about why you hired me in the first place? Because I didn't have anything.
That is a great question. I think we should talk about that.
Wow.
I specifically because I know the story. I think that's a really good perspective for our audience to listen to.
The perspective to share about the Savage, and so I guess we're gonna talk about this. So we have this attempt, a failed attempt on my part, and then I continued to capture video for years at a poor rate, and then we had an individual, another Scott, who was very involved in the business, who's absolutely just a stand-up human being, and he, fortunately for him and his family, is in the commercial construction world. And he had an opportunity to go elsewhere, and he was always working part-time at that point, and we never really got up off the ground via marketing management and video. Despite his best efforts, he gave and he gave and he gave, but he was part-time at that point, and so it just was not the level that we want to be at here as we are right now. And he goes on, he works commercial construction. We then hired another individual, and she's actually the one, I give her credit, her name was Steph, give her credit because she's the one who was like, hey, you guys got to start a podcast. Like, this is where you got to be, And I was like, I honestly was not into podcasts. I had no idea about them. And here we are literally ranking as one of the most successful off-road podcasts in the world, right? 35 countries, so on and so forth.
So what's important to note about that, though, is that you were not doing the podcast when Davey and I were brought on.
No, we had
done like 6 episodes or something,
less,
5 episodes maybe, and just kind of
withered out.
You didn't go anywhere with it.
Correct.
And
so,
it was probably a year of me going, hey, we really need a podcast.
100%.
Davey, I think, was even encouraging that.
100%. So the podcast, we had wanted to come back around. It was always in the back of my brain. And Steph had brought it in. Now, Steph started doing video. She was a pretty decorated videographer, photographer in her own sense. And she had brought a number of things into the world, but then COVID happens.
I was going to say, it withered out not because of her.
No, not because of her, but because of us. Right? Some of the issues that I'd actually, Davey's already brought up and how challenging it is to work with us because, the business model to this point has been to serve our customers, first and foremost, is not necessarily been to create media, right? And so that's how we're trying to transition. It's that we were serving our customers first and foremost, and then it was just the media was an afterthought-ish. And so that was always why I was trying to hire somebody so that it was their primary thought. That is their job, is to make it a primary thought, because for me, I have all the thoughts. For Greg, his thought is just to build vehicles. Scott is just to communicate with nuts and bolts, right? Yeah. We needed a person whose priority was the the capturing the
Media
moment,
content.
the capturing the media content, and I knew that, right? I'm familiar enough with myself and the inadequacies of us and what we had been doing, but I knew we were doing cool things, right? So here we are. COVID has hit. We are. Knock on wood, we're weathering it very well by comparison to other businesses. A lot of people out there hurting. We were the ones, we just kind of kept our head down and just kept doing good, solid SFJ 4x4 work, right? Opportunity presents itself. Steph needs to go her own way. She actually ends up buying a magazine publication or something, a digital publication. And we really hadn't been making things work. But I knew we needed to keep up the momentum, right? The infantile momentum. So I put a job posting out there. Have a handful of people from Western Pennsylvania, Northeastern Ohio apply. And, I'll be honest with you. I think it's funny in American Hustle, when there are certain requirements within the ad, you should probably follow those. That would be my recommendation, right? With that said, Davey's over here smiling because he didn't.
He didn't.
And that wasn't exactly pointed at Davey as so much as it was people who jumped into my personal inboxes and were kind of expressing interest in it. Honestly, pretty qualified individuals. But their first and foremost thing was to jump into my inbox versus approaching the business through the professional business venues, or through the emails and the phones and that kind of stuff. So, but what ends up happening is the Savage walks in the door, and I'm gonna paint an unflattering picture of Davey. He is unemployed. He has no equipment whatsoever, and has never professionally edited or done photography. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And obviously, I got to be honest with you.
I want to backtrack just a minute, because as a customer buying parts, I had seen that ad and I put in for that job as a part-time side gig with qualifications and equipment. And there was a conversation because there was a tech position open at the same time.
Yeah.
And somehow I ended up leaving a better paying job to come work a full-time job that I had no experience doing.
Oh God, is that true? So here's the thing. It's I looked at Davey and this is what, it kind of is reminiscent of when Greg first showed up back in 2014. Greg showed up in a similar. Now at least Greg had a background in automotive. Within reason. He was working at a body shop and had been there off and on a couple times. He was an electric motor shop, and he was like, "Hey," he showed up in a cool Jeep. He was like, "Hey, I want to build Jeeps," and I was kind of like, "Oh, He's like, "Well, and I work at a body shop, so okay, cool." But the same kind of approach that I had with when Davey came in, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going to hire you." Yeah, I'm just not. There's zero qualification there in this exact moment. And Greg's was not with him necessarily personally, but the fact that we weren't ready for that, as I was not ready for that as an employer. Whereas Davey walked in, and I was like, I've literally had at that point in time, I had a couple people, and like you're saying, you even had qualifications. I had a couple people in my inbox who had literally had like award-winning videos from local film festivals, and like, oh, I'm starting out, and I did this production and I did that production, blah 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 blah, and I was like, all right, that's cool, that's what's up, And in the process, and I'm American Hustle, people may or may not know, I'm real slow to hire. I really believe in quality over quantity, right? And so people come in and they go, well, if you just had more techs, and I'm like, yeah, well, or hear me out, if we were more efficient, right? Sometimes businesses get mixed up between efficiency and volume, So, so I'm always going to reinvest in the people and then the infrastructure, and then eventually we'll bring on more bodies. But and the process. So people, process, the infrastructure, and then we bring on more bodies. But anyways, so I'm slow to hire in the process as I'm weeding through and I'm having conversations with people. What happens? Davey comes back in the door. And I really want Davey to go away. Right? I really want the Savage to go away. But let's go back in the conversation.
But you can't say no to somebody to their face.
Where when Davey when he's like, hey, we really need to film. And I'm like, but I don't want to film. I don't want to film Savage. He's like, he just stands there and stares at you. He's just resolute, right? And I'm like, okay, dude. I was like, I think at that point in time, I was like, what are your qualifications? Like, do you have a resume, a cover letter? I'd asked for something.
I don't know what his response was, but I feel like it was, I want to film.
It was probably I want to film. It was pretty much what it was. I was like, what do you have for equipment? I don't have it yet, but I'll get it. I was like, what is your experience? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well. I was like, what, basically, like, that's it. I want to do this. And you know what? Honestly, that type of attitude can be overwhelmingly better than just somebody who's like, hey, I have this laundry list of quality experiences that are absolutely applicable to your needs. A person with the right attitude can, and in my opinion, return tenfold in the process. And I want to say it was somewhere around the third time you actually came back with, I remember it was just one sheet with like a little work history or something. And
that was the first time.
That was the first time?
Yeah.
That was how you came in the door?
Was it a resume or was it just a typed up sheet of work history?
What's the difference?
It was terrible, is what it was.
So
I
it was just a typed up sheet
at
of
this
work
point
history.
in time. I can confidently say at this point in time it was terrible. And you know what? Honestly, I want to say you came back 3 times before I was like,
You never said no, so I just kept coming back.
well,
He went
there
for
it is.
no.
He went for no. And I think that's so funny because that is just the honest truth was that the persistency, the resolute nature, the fact that I knew we were not ready to be able to hire on that really decorated individual because we didn't know what we were doing at first.
Well,
we're learning together.
right.
Is
You
the
still
reality.
don't.
Well, that's probably true.
We're still infantile, according to what we just talked about. Daddy Jeep's in here going, I tell my kids that attitude and willingness to learn are the most important values to get a job, and Davey is living, breathing proof of that.
without a doubt. And that's the nature is that I knew that we needed to learn together. And that's really the big thing. I had tried a couple times and failed. And that's obviously what the American Hustle is about, is failing forward and understanding that the next chapter needed to be different than what it previously was.
And if you bring in somebody that's ultra experienced in media and they have their own unique vision of how they want things to be done, it's harder to adapt it to the business vision. And
I think that's the biggest piece because we've talked about that with technicians, and probably what sets us out apart from other general service garages and general operations within our off-road industry is the fact that we are enthusiasts attempting to bring our skills and experiences to other enthusiasts.
yeah,
Right? Whereas if you bring in a dealer technician who is, has gone to dealer trade school and has gone through all of those programs, they're going to bring in their habits, their experience, and their own vision of how their day-to-day works.
yeah.
And therefore, we're not going to be able to meet the unique demands of the Jeep community and the off-road community and the automotive community as efficiently or as organically, as authentically as we currently do. And the big thing about YouTube, in my personal, because YouTube has been a big like a big goal for me, a big golden ring, if people know that analogy has been a big goal in the ring for me for years and years and years at this point. But the thing about YouTube is it really needs to have this unique blend of quality production and organic reality. I know that that's the kind of the recipe that we need, but how do you get there? I don't have that knowledge or skill set, but that's what Davey is bringing to the table, that attitude, that willingness to learn and go, I'm willing to create this and share in the vision, share in the workload, lighten the burden for us.
And
as
he
a
goes,
team.
but you got to be willing to do this film, and I know you don't want to, but you're doing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I can look at it and be like, I mean, and just as a complete man behind the curtain conversation, I didn't want to do that Jeep Trucks video. I couldn't figure out where to make it a priority. I couldn't, I was sick. We were behind schedule, and
yet it's becoming one of our more successful
it's
launch
becoming
videos.
one of our more successful. It's certainly our most initially successful, as far as virility is concerned. The authentic nature of its initial launch to reception, it is probably our most successful video. I had no interest in doing it in the manner in which Davey wanted it to be done, but because of his resolution, we did it.
His
Equally-
persistency to get the job is what persisted on to get you to do the film.
100%. And that's that's the expectation out of all of us here within the business, because
Let's push each other forward.
is to push each other forward, because Greg's going to do it on the service floor, and
Yeah.
Scott's going to do it on the service floor and the restorations. And through that
Oh,
process,
yeah, if you try to work side by side with Greg on the service floor, you better be ready to do something.
you better bring your absolute A+ game.
He's going to call you out, and he's going to make you do it better.
Correct. And Scott's not going to settle for, get me by stuff. And he's going to be thoughtful in his processes and procedures and really approach it in a higher caliber plane. And that's what ultimately, we're doing here on the media side, and trying to capture those moments and capture those experiences and share them back, as opposed to, Rob has a good, successful channel, and I give him credit. I'm thinking more of these characters who are doing how to fix videos on their pages more than anything, more so than like vlog style. That's just the nature of that is just like, hey, I found this fix, and then you rudimentarily shoot the video, and because we all attend YouTube University for some manner. That doesn't mean you found all the fixes. That doesn't mean you've done root cause analysis. That doesn't mean you've done all the diagnostic training and whatnot. You just, hey, here's how I did this. And then the video
You found the
blows
Band-Aid
up.
for your problem.
Yes. And then the video blows up, right? And good credit to those guys. And they've got Mr. Fix-It videos and Mr. Fix-It University videos or whatever, What we're here to do is kind of capture the unique essence of our industry, seen through our eyes, and then share it with as many people who find it entertaining as possible.
Yep.
And across all the mediums. And I thank you guys for that process. And hopefully if people are listening at home and they have questions, they can email Jeffrey, and we can redistribute it. We can share it with the Savage. We can share it with Jeffrey, obviously, and we're happy to answer those things. And this is a little bit of how we got into media and where we're going with it, and the success of the videos and the success of the podcast. And obviously we encourage other people who want to get into it to do it yourself. I think there are some really cool tools in this conversation here to say get out there and do it in the process,
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything further to share?
No.
Davey didn't share much to begin with, so
You know what? I think that
what's your process,
I don't know
Davey?
what you guys expected.
I like to film.
Here.
what did we? I like to film. I like to. You know what? Text with Davey, and he'll just blow your ears off via text. Should we have done this via text? Could we have done the podcast via and we could have just read them out loud?
He literally could have just sat at his computer messaging and on the comments.
That probably would have been a lot better.
Folks, I hope you had a good time kind of understanding a little bit about what's happening behind the in reality of what's happening behind the backdrop of SFJ 4x4.
reality of the situation is
The reality of the situation is we're coming to every corner of media that we can do. We want to bring cool, authentic content, and that's always been one of the things that we talk about. We don't do a lot of reshares or a lot of memes.
But in actuality, the reality is we have no idea what we're doing.
We know what we're doing. We don't know if other people actually like it. I think
I don't know.
the
That's
piece.
probably true.
But we are trying to be original and authentic in that approach. So we do have Jeeps to work on, and Davey has videos to make, and Jeffrey has podcasts to produce. Until then, Jeep family, Jeep on.
Jeep on.